Missiles, skirmishers, ranged, whatever you want to call them, these guys can be a valuable asset to any army. And with this one simple tactic that you can employ, you can do a hell of a lot of damage to a specific unit in the enemy army very quickly. And it's going to allow you to maximise your damage output with your skirmishers. Let's get down to the total war tactic of focus firing.
Don't stop until they're all dead!
Exactly. So for a first demonstration of the power of focus firing, I've got 3 units of Empire crossbowmen against 3 units of Empire crossbowmen. So a completely fair fight, and I'm going to focus fire. The AI is not going to focus fire, they're just going to fire at whoever they fancy. And we shall see the difference. So focus firing as a tactic, very simple, you're just taking 2 or more skirmisher units and firing them at one single unit. So I've got all 3 of my crossbowmen firing at one of their crossbowmen units. The AI is firing at each of my 3 units, so it's basically 3 one-on-ones going on for them. But for me, it's a 3-on-1, and you can see this unit's down to half health, and already it's routed. So I'm now going to move on to the second unit. I'm trying to keep my general out of the way so that it doesn't affect their morale of either side, so we're going to fight in the middle. I'm now starting to focus fire on the second unit, and their health is going to whittle down very quickly. I've taken a fair bit of damage, and one of my units is wavering, but no one has routed yet. And then we rout the second unit of missiles. So now we're going to move on to their last unit that's still standing. So that one's still running away, and that one's just started running away. They're both very beaten down. This one's still fresh until we just started firing on it. I've got about half health on all my skirmishers. And we've got them just below half health. I haven't had any routing myself yet. I've got some wavering, but no routing. And then finally, that unit gets defeated too. And while we have taken a lot of damage, I've managed to rout all 3 of their units without having any of mine rout. So that's all well and good to work with skirmishers, but how does it apply when skirmishers are attacking infantry? So first of all, I'll give a demonstration of attacking multiple units with your skirmishers. I've got 3 units of bowmen here. They're not fantastic, but they will do some damage. So I'm going to let them fire on whoever they want to start with, and that's going to be the first unit that comes into range, which is the Ungor Spears. Now let's get them firing on separate units. That one on Goreherd, that one on Beastigore. That's a bad idea all round though. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm now firing at 3 different units. And while we are going to do some damage across the board to multiple units, we're not really maximising our damage output or making a significant difference. And when those units do arrive at the front line in melee combat, they're not going to be too affected by the missile fire, apart from the spearmen, but they were the lowest threat of all those units. Now let's try with some focus firing. First of all, we'll let them fire at the closest unit that comes into range, and then when a more dangerous one comes into range, we'll switch to them. Of all the units that they've got, these spearmen are the least of my worries, because spearmen on spearmen could go either way, but I believe I've got the stronger spearmen here. So I'm going to fire on their Goreherd instead, a very dangerous unit to me, because they're a melee unit, and they're designed for cutting people down quickly. If I can get rid of them before they reach the front line, I'm going to make it a lot easier for my front line. So get rid of the most dangerous units when the opportunity is there. Depending on the units, this can be a better idea than firing on multiple units. And you can see this Goreherd unit here starting to waver, and they're not going to do much by the time they get to the battle. So now that we know that we need to identify and aim for the most dangerous targets, we need to ask ourselves, can we deal with that target? On the left here, I've got 3 units of Empire crossbowmen. On the right, 3 units of Empire handgunners. Now the difference between them is that handgunners are armor piercing. Their damage, 14 armor piercing, 3 regular missile damage. So they're designed for taking down heavily armored units. The crossbowmen are the opposite. They have a lot more regular weapon damage and only 4 armor piercing damage. So they're going to be best for shooting at lightly armoured troops. Now, we have a variety of enemies incoming from the Chaos Warriors. We have the almighty Chaos Trolls, some Chaos Marauders with great weapons, some Chaos Warriors who take note that they have a silver shield. So if you don't know what a shield does, it's indicated by the icon next to the armour. As it says, it can block 50% of incoming missiles. A bronze shield would do less. Then we have some Chosen with great weapons, a very dangerous unit. Both those units are very heavily armoured. So who should we have our non-armor piercing crossbowmen firing at? Chaos Marauders or Trolls? I personally go Trolls. I think they're a more dangerous unit, so I'm going to try to get rid of them first. Once I've got rid of them, or once I've got them routing, if I've got time, I can then change to the Chaos Marauders. Now for the handgunners, who the hell should they be firing at? The Trolls are already being fired at, so we don't need to worry about them. I'm going to go for the Chosen. It's between them and the Chaos Warriors, but the Chaos Warriors are the less dangerous unit to me, and they have shields, so they're going to block a lot of my missiles. The Chosen don't have shields, so they'll take a lot of damage from my missiles. And as you can see already, they've taken nearly half health damage in 2 or 3 volleys. So making sure you get the right matchup for your ammo type is very important. But what about if we switch them around? What if I had the handgunners firing at the trolls and the crossbowmen firing at the chosen? Well, you're still going to do a good amount of damage, but you're not going to maximise your damage output, which is really the key to this game. So when you can get a really dangerous unit to rout, it's going to get rid of them, and of course they're going to come back later, but they're going to be so much easier to deal with when they come back and or in the late game. So focus fire on your targets wisely so that you don't end up wasting a ton of potential damage. And this tactic works great against large units, things that are huge and are such big targets that they can't really get out of the way of missiles. Like Kolek here, like Giants, Vargolfs, Terrorgeists, Generals on Griffins and Manticores, Cygors, all very big targets that are easy to hit. So Kolek here, in the time it takes him to smash through a unit of Orc boys, 2 units of Orc Arrow boys, who have poor accuracy by the way, can take him down and get rid of him and rout him before he gets time to really do much damage. So focus firing is an absolute killer for these units. It's also great against flying units, Vargeists, Pegasus Knights, even generals that are flying. You can do a lot of damage just by focusing your attention on one target with your missiles. You can also use this tactic with skirmisher cav and artillery as well. And when you do manage to rout and break certain units, they'll run away and sure they'll eventually come back. But that time out of the battle, you've spent lowering your enemy's damage output. That's a very valuable thing. The more you can keep an enemy's units out of the fight, the more likely you are to win. And there we have it, focus firing. A very strong tactic when used correctly. With all this being said though, it's not that you should focus fire all the time necessarily. There are situations where firing at multiple units may be a better idea. Like all tactics in this game, everything's very situational. You use it when it's appropriate, not necessarily all the time. But this is something that you have to learn to judge for yourself. So thanks for watching, add this one into your tactics book and it will definitely serve you well. I'll see you in the future.